many home lab videos lately. And you know what keeps popping up? Creators telling me to build my own jellyfin server and to stop using service.
You can get your checkbook emptied really quick going this route, just so you know.
Like Netflix and Disney Plus. It's easy, it's cheap, it's fast, or so they say. I've been paying at least $50 a month for subscriptions for my daughter to watch her favorite TV shows and movies, and it's starting to add up. Sure, I've built servers in the past before, but they're just NASes, just boxes that hold lots of data. It's straightforward and safe. You install a NAS operating system and then follow a guide, then boom, all your data now exists on a server. But recently, my eyes were open to all the other things a server can do, like play movies, music, and even host photos. So I built a decent Ubuntu desktop that could do all that for about $50 by using an old
Other than needing to add your own storage, I could see that for sure. Depending on how the connections are for video and various other things, unless you're just wanting to SSH into it, just stands for secure shell. But you can run it headless, just kind of have it in your office somewhere on the side, and then you can access the basically the command line interface of your system remotely from any other computer that's on the same network, as long as they both have some sort of SSH software installed.
Old Dell Optiplex we got off eBay. And that got me thinking, what if I wanted something even smaller and sleeker for my living room? But instead of choosing the simple route of installing a Linux desktop with a pretty GUI, I opted for the hard way. So is it as easy as they say? After going through this, will I also be one of those creators that say, building a server is cheap and fast, anybody?
Now, she's done some Linux videos in the past where she's installed Linux on one of her laptops, and she was testing it to see if it could replace her Mac OS, system or systems, I'm not sure. But if this was her first installation of any Linux-based system, I think she would have. I don't know how difficult this is going to be via this video, but if she had never done Linux before, I think this would have been crazy.
They can do it. Or is that just a lie they tell you to get you trapped into the home lab rabbit hole? Well, to find out, I have to go and get myself a sleek little machine that's also cheap. And what better way to do that than to buy used? Especially since Windows 10 stopped getting security updates, there's been a mass exodus of PCs on the used marketplace. And surprisingly, those PCs aren't bad at all. In fact, they're perfect for something like a server, or so my friends say. As soon as I got this idea to build a home server, I called one of my home lab buddies, Colton from Hardware Haven. As I got this idea to build a home server, I called one of my home lab buddies.
Hardware Haven has 405 subscribers, 177 videos. Could you imagine being big enough on YouTube where you can just call up somebody with almost 500,000 subscribers just with a random question? Like, hey buddy, I'm doing this computer thing and I'm trying to figure out this thing I'm doing. I'm just wondering how that would feel, just one day just calling up some random, medium-sized YouTuber, and they're like, yeah, I got your answer right here. I don't know, it's just wild to me that you can just call up someone like Hardware Haven.
He's Colton from Hardware Haven. Now, I'm no master of hardware, and there were too many questions that I had. What computer do I buy? How much RAM do I need? What about the CPU? What do I get? And after an hour-long conversation, he recommended this category of PCs called Tiny Mini Micros. If you don't know what that means, they're different names for the same thing, which are ultra-compact computers designed for places like hospitals and dentist office. Lenovo Tinys, HP Minis, and Dell Micros. He also mentioned something else, that if I seriously wanted to play back smooth 4K video, I would need to look at 6th generation Intel chips and after. Now, being the PC noob I was, I nodded and said, yeah, I'll figure it out later. So off to eBay, I found a decent PC that was cheap-ish. A Dell Optiplex 9020 Micro for $89. A Dell Optiplex 9020 Micro for $89.
A 4th generation i5, that's super old for that. No storage, no nothing. One that's ready to go with a 512 SSD, 16 gigs of RAM. That's still just a 4th gen. And when you're trying to do hardware decoding, or encoding technically, when you're trying to do hardware decoding and other server-based related things, this might be a little on the lower end. We'll see what she says about it.
I patted myself on the back. Well done, you did it. It's even got an SSD inside it, unlike a lot of the other listings. And so I pressed buy now and proceeded to wait until it arrived. And when it did, it looked pretty good. Way smaller than I expected. And it even had a Wi-Fi antenna. Did I just hit the jackpot? All the stickers on it were torn off and erased, which made me think it came from a dentist's office. Now was the moment of truth. Did I spend $89 on a working computer, or did I get scammed? It even has remnants of stickers from a previous.
I wouldn't call it a scam. I would just say lack of knowing what you're getting, I guess. You know, which just not having the knowledge of what you're getting into doesn't necessarily mean a scam, in my opinion.
Life and random other ones like this. 6807. Holy, this thing was manufactured in 2015. That's over a decade ago. Honestly, it looks pretty modern.
I feel old.
Display port, VGA input, 4 USB ports, and an Ethernet port. Nice. It even got 2 USB 3.0 super fast ports on the front, and audio input and output too. So let's see if our $100 investment is going to pay off. But I had a problem. This PC only has output for DisplayPort and VGA, not HDMI. So I hooked it up to a portable monitor and nothing happened. Then I tried my Samsung G9, which is an absurd idea now that I'm thinking about it, and obviously it didn't work. Next was a DisplayPort on a curved monitor we had laying around, already set up. Again, nothing. So now what? I exhausted the majority of the monitors in the office, and then it finally hit me. We have a cheapo $75 monitor laying around here somewhere.
I think cheapo is part of the deal here, right? You're trying to build your home server for your media and stuff on the cheap, so why not use the cheapo monitor, right?
With a VGA port, but no VGA cable. So I ordered one off Amazon and proceeded to wait another couple
$6.20 added. All right, we're creeping up.
Couple days patiently. Finally though, the day came for me to test my theory that this PC is so old that it can only output through VGA. Of course it's old. It's got a Windows 8 Pro sticker on it. I haven't seen that since 2015. So I plugged it in, pressed the button, and it worked. Finally, my server project can begin. After solving one problem, I ran into another. Which OS was I going to install on my home server computer? After some research, I stumbled upon Ubuntu. It's commonly used and it has long-term support while being stable too. And looking at the Ubuntu website.
All right, yeah, well, she's looking at the right thing here. 24.04 LTS standing for long-term support. So this isn't something you're going to download and immediately a couple months later going to have to reinstall something else newer. And and one thing that I like about Ubuntu, other than it, I don't like its whole corporate thing that it's, corporately, ran. Too many cooks in the kitchen, theoretically, when something like that happens. But I like how their naming schemes for their operating system releases are. The first two numbers in that 24.04 stands for the year. So that was from 2024. It's still under support. 26, I think 26.04 will be the next long-term support. So I think they're supported, well, they're supported longer than that, but they get released every 2 years. And the .04 is the month of the year that it is released. So that would be April. So April of 2024 is when this theoretically released, barring any kind of delays, but it'll always be .04. And the non-LTS releases are .10. So those are in October, theoretically October. So I'm not too sure how this would have went if this was her first installation of an Ubuntu, or excuse me, of a Linux-based operating system, because depending on if she's going to go Docker or containerized programs that she's going to have to run as her media distribution program, and or is she going to have some sort of operating system to install on top of this that kind of converts it into like a NAS kind of setup, like a network attached storage setup. I'm not too sure what she's going to do here, but first install, I don't know. But she's, like we said earlier, she's done Linux related things before, so at least she knows some of the commands that you would have to type in the command line interface. You know,
There are more versions than any other distro I've ever seen. It's seriously so corporate. So I did what any regular person would do. I contacted their salesperson to get a recommendation on which version to get. He affirmed my decision to use Ubuntu because it's free, and then proceeded to recommend Ubuntu Server with no GUI. That would mean that I would have to learn new skills like SSH and CLI. I think those are...
CLI is just command line interface. She's done that before within terminal emulators, so that shouldn't be new to her. SSH is secure shell. That's how you can actually not wirelessly, you can remotely within the same network have access to this server that she's building without the need of that server having its own keyboard and its own monitor and things. You could just install this once and then just kind of never hook a monitor up again. Go on, well, she uses Mac, so on her Mac she could basically in the command line or maybe in the Finder, I'm not sure how it works on Mac, but you can actually access it remotely and give it commands and updates and different things, install different programs and whatnot. But SSH is definitely a new skill that she's going to have to learn, that's for sure.
things. He said there's documentation for troubleshooting, so nothing could go wrong, right? If you want your own NAS without going through the hassle of building one, then we've got you covered. Thanks to today's sponsor, Ugreen, and their NAS, the DH. Write it into the new boot drive. And unlike all my modern laptops, this little PC
and wrote it
actually
to a
has
boot
USB-A
drive.
ports, making it
Probably using something like Rufus or Bolina Etcher or something like that. Then you just put it in the new system, access the BIOS, either change the boot priority to the USB first or just directly access this thumb drive and boot from it, whichever way you wanted to do it. Changing the boot priority order might be, I don't know that I would necessarily recommend doing that, because every time you have anything bootable plugged into this machine, you're going to end up having to, it's going to end up just booting from it without you even asking. So, you know, if you threw a thumb drive in thinking that you're adding some extra storage and you forgot that you had a disk image or an ISO of that operating system again, it'll just load into the installation for Ubuntu Server 24.04 LTS, and that's not what you were wanting to do in that situation. So just keep that in mind for people that are possibly doing something like this in the future.
even easier. So I pressed install and let it go wild. After I followed instructions and pressed enter, and to my surprise, there were no bootable drives found.
Uh-oh.
What? I just saw everything installed properly, and now you're saying it's not there? So I did what any reasonable person would do, and I installed it again. It's like pressing restart. It's gonna work, right? And surprisingly, it did. So my Ubuntu 24.04 Noble LTS headless server was alive. My creation lives. It's finally time to start hacking the mainframe by SSHing into the server. But first, I needed the IP address by typing.
One thing she didn't go over is when you install Ubuntu Server, one of the packages that it asks you if you want it to install is called OpenSSH, and there's another one that it asks you called Docker. Those are the two that she's probably going to be needing for this project, but she didn't go over saying that she did that, but that's what she did.
Hostname-I into the command line. It's
unless she forgot to do those up front and then she went in and manually did the sudo apt install docker, sudo apt install OpenSSH, possibly, I don't know.
spit something out and boom, I typed in my password, I was in. That, shockingly, was the easy part. It wasn't until I got into the meat and potatoes of this server stuff that things take a turn. So I knew I had to install Docker. It's just like an app builder that pulls apps from the internet and lets...
Docker does that, but it's mainly a containerized application setup. So whenever you are updating a piece of software that's in Docker, it will not affect anything else on the computer at all. It is all containerized. If something fatal happens to your Docker container, you just delete the container, reinstall it from, from fresh. So that's a definite benefit of Docker itself. For new users, it can be a little difficult to set up Docker itself. There are other solutions that have Docker pre-installed, but this is a good video nonetheless.
Me build them onto my little server. At least that's how I understand it. Correct me if I'm wrong. And so I read some documentation and sadly did not understand. So I opted for following a bunch of tutorials online.
Okay. Installing Docker, sudo apt update. Okay. And for non-Linux people here, sudo is what you're doing to elevate your privileges basically to where you can do whatever you want on the computer. apt is your package manager that all Debian-based distributions of GNU/Linux use. And update, you're basically updating the system. And well, you're updating all of the package names that that apt uses. And then these are all different packages that she's looking to install, the prerequisites. Okay. Certificates, curl, software properties common. Okay, so you're adding a key for the official Docker repository. A repository is basically a server, kind of like an address for a server in a way that your package manager will be accessing to receive packages from. Not too bad I can't see the whole thing here. But I think this is official Ubuntu. Is this official Ubuntu website? I think it is. Or is this Docker itself? And I wonder if Docker's official page would have something. I'm sure it would have something good to show you how to install as well on various distributions.
Massive amounts of coffee and eventually got Docker running. I even did a test image called Hello World, which confirmed my Docker was doing everything it needed to. Talk to the Docker daemon, which is the brain of Docker. I pulled an image, I created a container, and I outputted it on my client. Yeehaw! We're doing things right. The next big decision is to figure out Plex or Jellyfin for my
Plex or Jellyfin. Plex is more, well, it's closed source. And a lot of people that switch over to Linux full-time, they are wanting the free and open source software. They're more of that kind of mentality. Jellyfin is free and open source. I don't think there's any kind of like subscriptions or anything, but Plex, you cannot see the source code. You can't modify it. You cannot redistribute it as such. And it's got some subscription related things. If you're running a media server, from Plex in your house, and you are wanting to watch movies or consume any of the media that's on your server on a mobile device, iPhone, Android, whatever, or tablet, you need a subscription. You need a subscription for that. So that's with Jellyfin you don't. But I've never used Jellyfin, so I'm not speaking from experience on Jellyfin. I'm speaking from what I've read. But I've used Plex. Plex just kind of works. That's the benefit of it. It just kind of works.
Video hosting software. Plex is known for its user friendliness, but I also saw that Plex has a monthly subscription if you ever want to use it.
Plex Pass, you can go lifetime with it. Perfect if you are ready to take your media server setup to the next level. Includes premium features like remote streaming for all users, hardware transcoding, downloads, skip intro and credits, and more. So you're telling me I need to pay you money, either monthly or lifetime or annual, so that I can skip credits? Oh, this is crazy. I'm assuming that Jellyfin isn't like this. I may have to look into that. This is crazy.
Remotely. Well, Jellyfin is self-hosted. That means you own everything and it will never ever go into the cloud. So if I ever have an internet outage, my Jellyfin server should still work. Jellyfin it is. And maybe like not. Docker, there's also loads of docs online on how to install it. So things are looking upward. They're moving along just nicely. That is until I tried opening up Jellyfin on my browser to see that it's not connected over and over again, even on Safari and on Chrome. It turns out my Jellyfin existed on my server, but it was invisible. It was in a little Docker container all by its lonesome. So I reinstalled it and it works. Reinstalling is just like magic. So now it was time to load up some movies and TV shows and just get things going. But how? My little PC doesn't have a disk drive and I only have real media in the office, like this full The Office collection in DVD form. I also picked up a full season 1 to 3 DVD Blu-ray set for my daughter, which I think she will be very excited for. So it was time to pull out my handy dandy Blu-ray player. Not a player, a disk drive. But before I had to do that, I had to download something called Make MKV, and it rips DVDs and Blu-rays into MKV files, like the name suggests. It's easy to use. You drop in your DVD, scan it, and then press go to start ripping. There were some road bumps here and there, like how some files just wouldn't read, no matter how many times I wiped my disk clean. And
there's another utility called Handbrake that people use too, which I'm not exactly sure what it does specifically. But those two kind of make MKV and Handbrake kind of go hand in hand with the whole DVD/Blu-ray ripping. But you also have to worry about, sometimes you'll run into DVDs, which that might be what Handbrake's about, that run into copyright issues as far as ripping it. Some just have blocks on it to where it doesn't want you to remove or copy the files off of it, digitally.
Completely new disc, so I don't understand why they wouldn't read. It took an entire workday to rip out all 6 discs, and each one took like an hour. So while I let them rip, I figured I would do something fun. Instead of being confined to only DVDs and Blu-rays, I wanted to...
That's almost as long as it would take to watch a movie, like an hour? I think technology would have advanced better than that.
Open myself up to things on the public domain, like open licensed movies and media. Stuff like those old Popeye videos or Felix the Cat. Ah, yes. Endless entertainment for rainy days with no internet and no outdoor activities. So after some research and talking to various friends who have experience with this stuff, it involves downloading and using a Docker stack that involves a VPN, qubit torrent, and some other things that end in R. I'm not gonna go into detail.
Yeah, the R things, if you set them right, and they are not the simplest thing, especially for first-time users, new people to the this ecosystem. But they will actually scour the internet for titles that you tell it to scour for, and it will download them for you. There are multiple .arr programs, and there are Docker containers as well. What else was she saying that she was?
Myself up to old internet and no outdoor activities. So after some research and talking to various friends who have experience with this stuff, it involves downloading and using a Docker stack that involves a VPN, qubit torrent, and some other...
Yeah, the BitTorrent is how you're going to download your movies. And fun fact, when BitTorrent came out as a technology, it was not actually designed for pirating. It was just a super simple and way faster way to download your files. Because you can split your files into hundreds of pieces and download all of them simultaneously and then recompile them all together as one file in the end. Super fast. And a VPN to hide your location, to make it look like you didn't actually do the downloading from the location you did it from. Sneaky stuff. I'm not for it or against it. It's just, it's out there.
Things that end in R. I'm not gonna go into details, but let's just say it involves some serious hacking with how much troubleshooting I had to go through to connect everything and get it working. But finally, after 3 hours, it worked. Thank goodness. And instead of ripping my DVDs of The Office, I figured I would torrent them instead to test my new stack and save me time and effort, which I think took me even more time because my torrenting stack barely knew how to talk to each other. Eventually, it did it. But was it worth it? I probably should have just ripped my discs instead. It's way more straightforward. You put the disc in, go boop, 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 done. But after that, things got a bit easier. I knew I also wanted to remote access using something called Tailscale, a VPN that lets me connect to the server from wherever I wanted to. That would let me watch Bluey from my house, even if the server was still at the office. At this point, I was invincible. I was 90% of the way there, so close, and I knew it would be over soon. So I installed Tailscale. Now I've got 3 seasons of Bluey on my MacBook, but I still had to transfer it to my server. Luckily, I have experience with these things with my NASs. I had to set up SMB so I can just...
I have a quick question. Most network-attached storage operating systems allow for Docker containers. Why isn't she just running these Docker containers on that? That would have made it for a good video, so it's not like it's just for the video. That's weird. Yeah, you could just run it. You could do all of your movie storage on the NAS, which has redundancy for your data protection built in via RAID. Stands for Redundant Array of Independent Disks. And so you already have your data protection there. If one drive fails, you just replace the drive, you lose nothing kind of situation. And then you can run the Docker containers on your NAS. What was it? TrueNAS Scale and Ugreen, like she already did the sponsor spot for. There's some other NAS companies out there. But, hold on. Amazon.com. Ugreen, Buffalo, Synology. That's the one that I was thinking about. Synology, NASs themselves. I think this is a 2-bay, and this is an older one. As long as they're Intel chips, they do fine, unless she doesn't have an Intel chip for the transcoding or encoding. Sorry. Does this say? Oh, hello. I hit the wrong button. DS233. I'm sorry to pause it like this. I'm just... The 224 Plus, which is the current one. But the thing that sucks about Synology is they are lacking on their RAM. 223, here we go. Oh. Yeah, all the research I've done, they said if you have an Intel chip in your NAS, you can just run Plex or Jellyfin directly on it. And unless you don't care about encoding, I think I would, though.
Drag things into a folder and have it magically transferred to the server. And that's it. The moment I've been waiting for. To remote into my server. Play my very own Bluey from my self-hosted streaming service. No more of that Disney Plus stuff. It's time. So there was Bluey playing on my phone without logging into Disney Plus or playing full-length episodes off YouTube. I even tried it at home. And it worked. It's so cool. And it was all mine. But was it worth it? It's taken me a full week's worth of troubleshooting, as well as about $200 between the PC, the Blu-ray reader, and the 3-season DVD set of Bluey, and the quality is poop. I'm literally playing it back at 480p. Apparently, DVDs are 480p quality, max. Well, now I'm just disappointed. All that work for 480p resolution. What am I doing with my life? Sure, it's more cost effective than Disney Plus, but the 1080p and 4K versions only exist on Disney Plus. And if you think about it, what if it doesn't just work now that I've set it up?
Another thing about the whole streaming thing, there's a big emphasis nowadays on censorship. And they will actually remove and or alter scenes in a lot of shows and movies in the interest of censoring, things that are taboo nowadays, or just flat out nudity or anything like that. So if you want to see these shows and or movies in their original form, guaranteed to not be altered, physical media is the way to go. A lot of people don't like physical media, but you could forego all of this. Since, for the most part, she's talking about ripping off of physical media anyways, why not just get you like a Blu-ray player that plays DVD and Blu-ray and upscales? Some of them upscale all the way up to 4K. Or maybe a DVD, which standard resolution is 480p up to 1080p. You can just buy your discs and then just play them. But this setup here that she's talking about doing is kind of your own Netflix. But if you have a 480p file, I'm pretty sure you're going to be watching a 480p file. And it can look a little pixelated if you're real close up to it.
A busy person with a business to run and a kid to raise, I wonder if it would have been easier and more worth it to keep on spending the monthly subscription fee.
This is the yearly, so. I'm just trying to think, how long would it take if you're going to want to protect your data redundantly via a RAID, so you'll need multiple drives, a minimum of 2. That way if one fails, you still have your data on the other one, because it's mirrored. And then you'll just buy the new drive and place it in, and it'll format and copy everything over, and everything will be fine. But I'm just wondering, I know it's different household to household, but I'm kind of wondering how long you would have to have your own self-hosting before it pays for itself. Because these NASs aren't cheap. And if you're trying to go the cheap way that she's going, and then maybe adding some sort of external drive bay that has a hardware RAID controller, or doing a software RAID, or however you're doing it, plus the drives, plus however you're going to acquire your movies and shows, whether it be legal or non-legal ways, which I don't frown on anybody. Do what you got to do, right? But how long would it take all of that setup, whether you go the cheap way or the expensive way, how long would it take for you to actually make up your money and then be in the green? Because let's look up just theoretically, check this out. All right, so we're gonna go to a DS224. Was it a plus? Yeah, this is just a 2-bay. Which is an 8 terabyte bundle, which comes with 2 4 terabyte drives. And watch this. What is the typical file size for a 1080? Come on. Okay, so 3 to 6 gigabytes, and a single terabyte is 1,000 gigabytes, give or take. And then you're going to end up doing you're going to have some sort of partitioning, I would assume, so you're not going to get the full terabyte. Let's just say you get 90% of it. So you get 900 gigabytes, and you're having 4 of them. Okay. I'm opening up a calculator here. So 900 times 4. So 3,600 gigabytes. And let's just go on the top end of 6 gigabyte. Okay, so we have 900 times 4. Okay, that's 3,600. And you're going to divide that by 6. 600 movies if they're on the large side. And this right here comes with your drives. How long would it take, and let's just assume that you acquire everything illegally. You're not purchasing physical media to rip off of. And we're not talking about a Blu-ray drive to rip off of your physical media. We're talking just the network attached storage. How long would it take for you to recoup that? She said 50 a month. So let's go to my calculator again. So we'll just call it 703, and we're just going to add a tax to it. My state's 6%. So we'll call it 745. So 745, we're going to divide that by, she said 50 a month. Okay, so 14.9 months of nothing going wrong and them not giving up on this idea, and really, so 15 months. So that's a year and 3 months to make up your money. And if anything fails within that time, you have to replace the drive. This is an interesting proposition.
We'll be getting access to not just Blu-ray, but also Disney movies and new releases, and in good quality too. Plus, I wouldn't be sitting in front of my laptop for endless hours punching things into the command line, crossing my fingers it would fix everything. But there was another part of me that knew that going back to paying a monthly fee for subscription services wouldn't be the right way to go. To never own anything, always paying a rental fee to watch something over and over again anyways. It reminds me of my Kindle, actually. I keep on buying these books, but you
notice how she air quoted buying, right? You're actually purchasing a license to use their product that they have access to via their contractual agreements. Once they don't have access to those items anymore, guess what you don't own anymore? Your book goes bye-bye. It's no longer in your library at all.
I'm never gonna own them.
And the original book that you purchased your license for, if the author or the publishing house that they're published through ever modifies the book, edits out anything that people are offended by, or changes cover art or anything, guess what you now have on your Kindle that you didn't want to begin with, theoretically? You have all of these modifications. And that's not what you originally wanted, I'm assuming. You wanted that original book, whereas if you were to buy that book physically, originally, you would have that book, and it doesn't matter what they do later on, modifications to it. That's not what you have. You have the original book as it was intended by the author, the editor, and the publisher. And same goes for these streaming services. Whenever people get offended by things, or something within the show or movie is not deemed appropriate anymore, they remove it or alter it altogether, and you don't have the original thing. That's why I'm a huge proponent for physical media. That's for sure. You can get DVDs from secondhand shops for $1 or $2, Blu-rays secondhand, maybe like $5. And yeah, people are on eBay and Amazon wanting a killing for their stuff, but yeah, it's not expensive. Hell, I just recently got the Hunger Games 4-pack, all 4 movies on Blu-ray. I got it on sale for $5. like a little over $1 a movie. Crazy. And I'll own it forever. Can't nobody ever take it. Can't nobody alter it. Nothing.
Just own a digital license that they can take away from you whenever they want.
Yeah,
so
for
yeah, I
whatever
do
reason.
think it's worth it,
As long as
especially
it's
if you're the
within
kind of
their
person who
terms of
can get
service.
their hands a little
The
dirty
EULA
in
or
the
whatever it
terminal.
is.
Besides, my daughter's a kid. What can she tell between 480p and 720 and 4K, right? It's all about control and ownership. To have something that can last beyond the end of.
You could theoretically acquire movie files illegally and only download the 4K stuff, but you're going to need a lot of storage room or you're not going to have many movies.
Next month. So maybe building your own server isn't for everybody, but it's way more empowering than you think. You actually get to make a decision now between, do I want to pay for.
But that's the important thing too. At the end of the day, it is just your decision. You know, nobody's here telling you what to do. But you want to build a server and invest in the hardware specifically to have your freedom of choice and not pay subscription fees just for them to modify, movies and remove movies, and you never know month to month what subscription service has what movie or show because licensing and whatnot, reasons, and you could just have your files permanently and then just replace your drives as they fail in the future, as long as you're running it on a RAID, or you could just buy physical media and nobody ever change that or take that from you. Or you could just subscribe and be happy. You just subscribe to all the services and you just have access to all of them. Whatever you want to do, whatever floats your boat.
Someone else for access, or do I want to be able to own it and then share it with my friends and family? And if I was able to figure it out, I honestly
I saw that
think
One Punch Man.
you could
Okay,
do it
somebody
too.
likes
But
some
there's
anime.
another thought. What if I had just bought a DVD player? This would have literally solved everything. Just have a DVD player and DVDs. Who needs a server, right? I'm an idiot.
You're not an idiot, Betty. Thank you for hanging out. If you made it this far, I appreciate it. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. You don't have to share. That's way too complicated. Don't share. Do not share this. You can share if you want. Just make a joke. Love y'all. Take it easy. See y'all next time.